Welcome back to the Money, Mindset and Business podcast. If you have been listening here for a while, or if you are new, I would really appreciate it if you could give that subscribe button a click and rate the show on whatever platform it is that you're listening on. Thank you very much. Let's get into the episode. So welcome back to the Money, Mindset and Business podcast. Today I have a very special guest all the way from across the other side of the world. We've got Juliet, and she's coming to talk to us about NLP, living your best life, self-publishing books, and just creating everything that you want right here, right now with ease. So, Juliet, please introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and tell us about what's going on in your part of the world.
Thank you so much, Leah. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation and a chat with you today. Yeah, it's nearly 6:00 p.m. here in Adelaide in South Australia, and for the last 10 years I've really dedicated myself to helping people really find and follow their purpose. And more recently what I've stepped into is helping coaches and entrepreneurs have more impact through our transformational mindset courses in NLP and hypnotherapy, but also learning and guiding people how to publish their own best-selling books and self-publishing pathway, and really get out of all of the funky limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome that can really come up when you say, I'm going to publish a book. There's so much self-worth. There's so many layers, and it's such a strange thing because we talk and we see people all day, every day, but there's a vulnerability in written words in a book that brings up so much stuff. I really think that everything in life is like a personal development course. Having your own business, having children, writing a book, like everything we do is like a perfectly artfully designed personal development course. So yeah, I'm really keen to just have a chat with you today and share some inspiration from both sides, hear more about you as well, and maybe inspire some more people to get their books out into the world, or take that next step in coaching or studying new things, because I know NLP was really transformational for you as well. So as a trainer, I'm so glad to know that you're a master practitioner of NLP.
Yeah. So what is it that, like, let the listeners know why did you go on this journey in the first place? So where were you before, and what was the transition? What was the reason? So they can understand a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, if you were talking to the Juliet 10 years ago, you would have been speaking to a very layered version of me. And what I mean by that is a woman who had just so many layers and masks on, of people pleasing, of ticking all the boxes in society of what we think we're meant to do to be successful. I was working a high paying corporate job. I was married. I had all the things, right, that you're meant to do to be happy. And I was miserable. I had anxiety that was so bad. I used to have to sometimes stop my car on the side of the road just to catch my breath because my heart palpitations were so extreme. And it was in my sort of mid to late 20s that I actually started thinking to myself, like, is this it? Like, is this my life? Just making a company, lots of money, living in a passionless marriage, having anxiety, drinking way too much alcohol on weekends. Like, I was in this Groundhog Day, and I started getting really curious. And I think with anything in life, if we can start being curious rather than self-critical, that's when healing can start to occur. And it was that curiosity that I just started following. And I started hearing and noticing patterns, which I think anyone on a personal development journey, you start hearing patterns and themes. Yeah. And I started like meditating before meditation was mainstream. This is 10 years back, right? And I started hearing about things like self-hypnosis and NLP and all of these successful people that I crossed paths with that seemed to be living a life where they were in the driver's seat. They'd all studied this thing called NLP. And so it was just something I was really curious about. And I ended up ending my marriage as part of that journey, and then had some interesting kind of work changes in my corporate world where I started actually thinking, God, I'd love to be a life coach or something. And everyone thought I was insane. They're like, why would you leave a high paying job to go be a life coach? Like, that's just such a hippie dream. What are you thinking about? And then I, luckily, about 6 months after my marriage ended, I crossed paths with my now partner in business and life, Paul, and he is the most incredible therapist, healer, hypnotherapist, NLP teacher. And it was just like when we met, it was like just long lost friends. Like, we literally have been inseparable ever since, and it's nearly 10 years now. And the first few years of my business, I started coaching and running women's retreats to Bali. And the last 5 years I've been teaching side by side with him. And it's such a gift, and I still sometimes pinch myself because I was in my old relationship and my marriage for nearly 11 years, and I thought that that was my life and my future, and we were maybe going to have children together and all of that stuff. And now I'm in this life where I'm making such a difference and able to have such a ripple effect in the world. And I guess it's just that reminder that no matter where you're at or how stuck or trapped you feel or how bad your symptoms are, like I really felt like no one could help me and nothing could change for a very long time. And now, nearly 10 years on, when you ask me what my story was and what got me into it, it gets like almost harder and harder to remember. I don't know if you feel like that as well. And I think when you do a lot of healing work and you let things go and you let the emotions go around events, especially with things like timeline therapy, you carry less of that anchored energy from the past. So you can be a lot more present, but it does mean that like, it feels like a lifetime ago that I was stuck in those patterns. And yeah, I just encourage anyone listening, like no matter what you're struggling with, like there are just incredible things and tools these days that you can access that you literally can let go and shift and change. And as I know you're a big advocate of, Leah, you really can live your most fulfilling life and design what that means for you based on your values, not injected values from what someone else is telling you should do. So I hope that answers your question. That was a lot.
It does. And I think what I'm going to pick out of there, what is springing into my mind is all the shoulds. That for me is a huge indicator that you're not living an aligned life.
Yes.
Because if somebody says, well, this is what I should be doing, should is banned in my vocabulary because you should be doing nothing. There's no shoulds. Stop shoulding yourself. What do you want? What do you want to achieve? Not what you should achieve. What do you want to achieve? And that is a massive mindset shift that you go through within the NLP process because you realize you actually have a choice.
Oh, yes, the word choice.
And that's the difference. What you should do and what you choose to do are two very different things.
It's so powerful. And even when you catch, yourself saying that, even shifting it to like, well, I could do this. It's like that curiosity again and that expansion and those possibilities. And it opens up a world of opportunity and path. And I think as well, people listen to and think about, and what I was stuck in back then was the things we should do, because sometimes we haven't given ourselves that opportunity, that permission to even explore it. That, people asking you, what do you want to do? That can be a really confronting question, because if you're riddled with limiting beliefs, you might have beliefs that are blocking you from even being able to answer that question. So there's such a process, don't you think, of peeling off the onion layers so that you can finally get to that point of like, do you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do, and you don't care about what other people think. And I think that transformation is so empowering, because we do only get one journey in this life, and our time is so precious. So yeah, I 100% get rid of the shoulds.
Yes, it comes up a lot with the clients I work with, and I'm like, okay, so you should be doing that. What do you want to do? Do you choose to do what you should do, or do you choose to do what you want to do? I mean, I myself got stuck in the shoulds. Like, I'm an accountant. That's my corporate background, accountancy. And therefore I thought, well, I should therefore be very good with money and be earning a lot. And that was my biggest should. But that wasn't my reality. And that should held me back for so long. Because, well, obviously in my head, I was like, well, that means that I'm not very good at what I do. But I know I'm a damn good accountant. And even though I've got the qualification, and society tells me, air quotes for those who aren't watching on YouTube, that I should be in an accountancy role doing accountancy work. Why should I? That's not what I want to do. I don't want to be an accountant doing accountancy work. I want to be a money mindset coach supporting female entrepreneurs to make their money work better. And I think having that accountancy background behind me makes me even better, because I actually understand the numbers on a different level to most business owners.
And you can convey it and communicate it in a way that people are actually going to receive and be able to practically apply. Because you've got those beautiful carried across skill sets. I actually just recently saw Stephen Bartlett, the Diary of a CEO, he took Australia, and I love he talked about this section of like find your crossover genius, and yours is obviously your accounting and your coaching, and mine is like helping people birth books and my coaching and training background, right, and retreats obviously. And so it's like find those zones of genius where you're so unique because you've done those years in the trenches of the accounting, and then now you've got this incredible skill set that you can really support people in that way. And I think as well, like the shoulds probably like accounting, not that I'm an expert in it, but it's very like black and white, right and wrong, things add up. And so it's of course going to be in that paradigm of like right and wrong in life and doing things because that's the right thing to do or things that we should be doing. And so the fact that you can now see the grey as well, that's a definite superpower.
There's a rainbow in my world.
Oh, yes. I apologize. That's much nicer. Look at your beautiful bright background. Of course there is a rainbow. Yeah.
Rainbow in my world.
I know. Why did I say you could see the grey? That sounded so boring.
I mean, you are right. There's an idyllic picture of what you think about when you see a book writer or a ghostwriter or somebody like that. You have this idea in your head of what it looks like. The same is for accountants, and I am seeing so many really kind of themselves accountants and bookkeepers and finance experts coming out into the world, and they are not that stereotypical man in the corner with a grey suit on who's just doing what he needs to do, and that's actually not the reality. And I think that's possibly why I didn't actually fit in the accountancy world for a long time, because that's not how my brain works. I want to question. I want to say, well, why do we do it like that? Why does that have to be like that? So yeah, that's why I'll let kick me out.
No, I can definitely relate. I can actually relate. We have like Writers Week and writers groups here, and I've just kept myself apart because I haven't seen myself as a writer, even though I've written several books. I will actually admit my first book, when I launched it, there were like something like 15 typos in the final version, even though I'd checked it, my editor had checked it, I'd had friends proofread it, and I was that beacon of, do you know what, it doesn't have to be perfect to be out in the world. And I had so many people telling me how much it changed their lives and how much it helped them. It didn't freaking matter. And I know people, I'm not going to name names, but I know people who are scholars of linguistics, of grammar. I know people who are employed as editors, and their writer's block is rife because it's almost like they can see all of the things that can go wrong, and it just like becomes this quagmire and this, you know, this block, right? So sometimes the not fitting in and having those extra sort of things, I probably trigger a lot of people because they're like, oh yeah, she's written her books, but look at the typos. I'm like, do you know what, it's changing lives, I don't care.
I think for me
they're fixed now. That's the beauty of self-publishing. You can do second editions, but they are fixed now.
That is one of the paradigms about that you learn in NLP, is the fact that if you put something out into the world and what people focus on is the flaws in it, that says a lot more about them than it does about you.
Yeah, and it's usually like their shadow, right? It's you're showing something in them that they're not allowing themselves to express, and that can be very confronting. But yeah, it's very freeing when you don't give a shit anymore. It makes life way more fun, doesn't it? It makes it a rainbow. It makes it much more colourful.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There are times now where I still get those shadow niggles of those, you're not good enough. And what the growth is in me is those niggles get shut down quicker and quicker and quicker every time.
Yeah.
And
sometimes though, don't you think they're useful because they actually get you to go back and refine something? Like there's always a usefulness until then we outgrow it and it starts being unuseful. But yeah, it's hard, I think, I think maybe this is I'm mindful of my language, but when you know all of these tools and you know how people can create change and shift, and you see so many people sort of bumping up against blocks and beliefs. And how do you go with that? I mean, we have a big saying, we don't NLP on people. We, a client is a client when they ask, and you can obviously, drop hints and things and bits, but you're also just a normal human day to day. But I think, how do you navigate knowing what you know, and then also knowing when to pick your battles or hold your tongue, or, choose what you share with family or friends or things like that?
I think one of the biggest phrases I got given by one of my coaches was, not everybody wants to be saved, and it's not up to you to decide that for them. And that sticks in my head. And It's like, it's not my responsibility to save the world.
No.
And then I'm a people pleaser. I like people to be happy. I want them to be content. So I go in and try and fix. Well, I did, saying that. Old Leah used to go in and try and fix everybody's problems. New Leah just lets people get on with it and lets them know that I'm here if and when you need me.
Yeah, it's so much healthier from those boundaries as well. And it's, it's definitely interesting. I heard a saying once, no one likes to be woken up while they're asleep.
Yeah.
And, it's not a nice feeling, is it? When someone wakes you up when you're asleep, it's like, why did you do that? I was sleeping. I was enjoying my dream. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But one of my favorite sayings is, if you can allow the noises of you enjoying your life arise them from this, have them arise from their slumber, and get curious about what fun is happening. That's such a different energy. And I think, you walking your path and doing what you're doing and shining your light and having your podcast and all those things, it's just like, it's here, and it's, waking up that curiosity in those who are interested, rather than, it being a direct thing. So,
Yeah, it puts the responsibility back on the other person, because it's not our responsibility. It's their responsibility. And if they don't want to do it, let them not do it. It's their life. Let them live it the way they want to live it. My opinion of it is nothing to do with them. My opinion is an opinion, and I've got to keep it to myself.
And just like the observer creates, if you perceive someone as needing help, they'll show up helpless. But if you perceive someone in, see that they've got what they need and they've got their highest potential and they'll figure it out. But if you need me, I'm here. Then that's how they can show up as well. So yeah, I think that's very healthy. You obviously have fantastic trainers, and it's good, because I don't know what the industry is like in the UK, but there's a very big variation in sort of trainers. And for us, like Paul and I, the way we love to teach in a very transformational but very fun and also like human way, and really give people that opportunity to experience their own personal transformation. And it sounds like you had some fantastic trainers in the UK, so that's excellent to hear what's happening in the industry there too.
I will actually share what I did on the end of the NLP Master Training. I've still got it on the shelf here. So at the end of our
board breaks, yes.
Here is mind over matter. I can smash through a board.
Yes.
It's there on my shelf, reminding me I can do whatever I put my mind to.
Yes.
And that for me was like, it's
a huge moment for everyone in our master training too, in that having those physical reflections and physical symbol of the unconscious blocks, and actually breaking through them. It's like, oh yeah, there is no board, there are no blocks, it's the illusion. So yeah, that's very cool that you have that. It's funny, like thinking of physical representations of overcoming things. Like I would say my first book was very challenging on a number of levels. I had to overcome a lot of like self-doubt, a lot of, is this good enough? A lot of that stuff. It was very vulnerable. But it also, was for the reader. And I remembered I was sort of procrastinating a little bit towards finishing it. And I heard this statement that said, the thing that will stop you from finishing your book will be the thing that will ruin your life. And I was like, oh shit, I don't want procrastination and perfectionism to ruin my life. Right, I'm getting this book out here. And I literally went online and I went on my Facebook page and I said to the world, my 2,000 friends or whatever, I said, my book will be available for purchase on May the 5th, 2016. And I hit click, and I had all of these people go, great, can't wait to see it. And then I was like, okay, I better finish it. Right. So sometimes that public accountability is so powerful. But now, like when I look at my book, it's like this beacon of you overcame perfectionism and procrastination. And I think having those tangible physical things that remind us when, we have challenges in life is super cool. So yeah, it's very cool. So let me ask you a question. I know you're the host, but if you were going to write your book, what would it be called?
Saying that, I'm actually in the middle of writing an ebook.
That's a book. We don't discriminate. It could be also turned into a published book, because if your ebook is like,
this is my this is essentially going to be available for anybody who wants it, so it's going to be free, available for people to essentially start considering money mindset work. So it's called the 12 Steps to Financial Freedom.
Ooh.
So it's becoming a wealth warrior, the 12 Steps to Financial Freedom. So it's like a book that you can actually physically transform your money mindset with.
I'm gonna, with love, say that sounds like an actual book, and that sounds like an epic actual.
Yeah, this is a very single page per step version of it.
Good.
But there is something in there. And there's a lady over here who I'm very close with called Cheryl, who does exactly what you do and brings people's stories. She's Scottish and she's got the most beautiful voice. I could listen to her talk all day. But she helps people write their stories. So yeah, she's on my list of, right, when I've got this out the way and I'm get over myself. The skeleton's coming together now while I'm writing the ebook.
Yeah. So, the skeleton, mapping it out is the most challenging part, and then filling in the flesh and fleshing it out. That sounds amazing. I can't wait to buy my copy. So, it's very cool. It's very cool. It's such a cool moment. Like, I'm sure Cheryl probably finds that too. But for me, I've got a book on the way of one of the writers that came to my last writing retreat, and she sadly lost her adult son to an accident on a farm. And so she wrote a book about navigating grief as a mother, and it is literally on its way to me. And it's like getting something physical that you've helped someone create, and it's meaningful for her and her community and everyone. And I can't wait to get my hands on it and just curl up on the weekend in front of the fireplace and read the book. And yeah, I'm excited for you to have that out in the world down the track too, because it really does. I think I told you before we started recording, like I remember the first time I got a message from someone I'd never met saying, I've just finished your book. One of my friends lent it to me and I'm coming on your next Bali retreat. And she like transferred all this money to me, and I'd never even met her before. And I thought, wow, that book is powerful. Thank you, past me. And so it's one of those things that's like a seed that you put out in there, and it can just really help people feel so safe, because there's so much skepticism these days. There's so many people that they're not sure, right? And if they really know you, I think your podcast is, and I mean, if you've done 12 podcast episodes, there's 12 chapters of a book already as well. So you would just have so much amazing golden content that you could wrap into that. So that's very exciting. So yeah.
I will let you into a secret that there's part of me, which is the part I'm working on, that's saying to myself, but all of this has already been said.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the wall I'm working on knocking down. Because I've read copious amounts of self-help books. They're all literally sat behind me. And everything that I'm saying is in one or all of those books. And then I remind myself, but my perspective on it is not in those books, because that's that writer's perspective. And my perspective needs to be heard by the people that want to hear it.
It's 100%. It will speak to the people. Like, there would be people that wouldn't even be able to see the books that are behind you, because obviously what we filter for, we find, and those books wouldn't exist in their reality because they're not looking for it, but you exist. And oh, she has a book. Okay, here we go. And for you, you've obviously dedicated yourself to studying and becoming this expert on all of these things, and you're distilling it all down and then delivering it in a Leah version and in your voice and in your background and with people who are going to relate to you and your pathway as well. So yeah, it's so common. It's so common what you've said. I actually went on a book diet when I was writing my book, because I didn't want my subconscious mind to just pull parts of books that I was reading. And at the time, Rise Sister Rise was really big, and everyone was saying, oh, you've got to read this book. You've got to read this book. And I was like, no, I'm writing my book. I'm not reading any other books, because I don't want to just unconsciously accidentally draw things and put it in my book, right? You know how the unconscious works. People think it's their own idea, and then actually they've seen it somewhere a couple of days before, right? So I was very mindful of that. I finished my book, I got it out in the world, and a couple of months later I had a message from someone, oh, your book reminds me so much of Rise Sister Rise. Another one from someone, oh, it's a lot like Rebecca Campbell's book. And I'm like, what is going on? So I finally read the book and I could see what they meant, but I had not read it. I hadn't touched it. So it's so bizarre. But yeah, your voice, your kind of energy will be just perfect for your people. So yeah, it's very cool.
You know what, you saying that you went on a book diet. So I started writing this ebook, and I haven't touched a self-development book since. And I am reading, but I'm reading fiction. So I made up stories, but not the self-help books, because I'm like,
it's a nice break, isn't it? It's a nice pause. If you've been so used to.
And I think it's my mind, my body was physically telling me, put it down, read something different, without me even realizing what I was doing, because you've just said that, and I'm like, recognition of my body's told me what I need to do to get the ebook done.
Clear your path and your channels and let it all just, one of my favorite quotes, I'm probably going to paraphrase it wrong, is like, eventually you'll get to the point where you stop reading other people's stories and you write your own. And that just speaks so much to me. Like, I'm a little bit of a book snob these days. Like, I'm more likely in a bookstore to go and buy a blank journal and a pen than actually pick up someone else's book. And I think when you've learned, NLP and hypnotherapy and that kind of thing, like, you realize how suggestible we are. And I'm very, much aware of who do I let hypnotize me and what kind of suggestions do I take on board. And so, I love creating that space to like get the ideas and the concepts out. In my book writing course, every year we do a book club, and we did The Artist's Way this year by Juliet Cameron. I don't know if you've ever read that, but the exercises, it's such a deep spiritual personal development book. I think if you love NLP and Master Prac, it's next level. Like, you would resonate so much. It's very challenging. But some of those activities that she gets you to do to just really stoke your creativity, it's not something we do, but one of the things that she recommends is like writing morning pages. So just emptying out three pages of handwriting every morning. And for me, it's such a powerful meditation practice, because you're literally just like clearing all of the debris of the thoughts and pulling everything out. So it's very powerful. But love finding out about that. And you'll have to let me know when you get it out. One thing I will say, if anyone listening to this, if you add me on Instagram, I will send you, I've got a little free 5 steps to starting your best-selling book, how to publish your best-selling book in 30 days. Sounds like a lofty goal, but I will share with you the first 5 steps on what you need to do to be able to start that process. So
awesome. I can put the link to that in the show notes as well.
Perfect. I'll send that to you.
Awesome. That's exciting. So tell us a little bit more about your books. What are they about? Who were they for? Where can they get them?
Absolutely. I'm actually in our recording studio, and I don't have my Relaunch My Life book, but I've got so we just released this book last year, actually, Evolve Your Mind. And it's actually a super simple intro into how NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, can transform your life. And my partner and I co-wrote this as a really simple how-to guide, because we had so many students ask us, what's a great beginner NLP book that I can give to a friend now that I've studied? And we we couldn't recommend a beginner one. Like there were a lot of very meaty technical jargon ones that people didn't really get the impact on.
Those are behind me. The technical.
Yeah, they're very technical. And so we actually made more of like an activity book, transformational, like, well, how can it actually help you? You know, the power of intention, you know, focusing on your conscious and your unconscious, how to get in the driver's seat and be at cause. So just like some of the real simple frames, but with activities. And then there's also guided audios that you can listen to where we guide through some timeline therapy, belief change processes, just some real simple intros. And so this has been an amazing book. My first book, my first baby, I don't have human babies yet, but my first book baby was Relaunch My Life. And that book is a teaching memoir, which guides, basically it walks through the journey from me leaving corporate and starting my coaching and retreat business. And it's a guide really for women who are wanting to find their purpose, and it helps walk through, you know, and understand and unravel your values, where you want to be, your goals. It's a beautiful, simple, easy read. All my books, I write them with the intent that you could buy them and read them in an hour or two on an airplane. So it's a great holiday kind of destination book. I think a lot of the time when we go somewhere, it's nice to do that inner work as well. So they're all available, Kindle, Audible, Amazon. So they're available all over the place, or on my website at julietlever.com as well.
So did you and your partner actually record the audio on the book?
Yes. Of course. I don't know about you, Leah, but I cannot stand if I listen to an audio book and it's someone else's voice. I don't know, it's not the same.
I listened to a book, I can't remember what it was called now, on Audible, but it wasn't the author, and it just sounded wrong. It did sound wrong. Actually, I finished listening to it because it was a very useful book, but it's so much better when it's the author.
It is. And it's funny because Paul, my partner, he's beautiful. He's like the most incredible therapist, and he's really funny as well. But he had undiagnosed dyslexia as a teen. And so for him, it actually was really confronting reading through the audiobook. And he, you know, had a few moments of, oh, okay, I've got to go back and reword and go back through that. And so that was a really cool thing. But his energy and his intention really like flows through into it. And he's a very powerful presence. When I was reading my first audiobook, it was fascinating as well for me, where I still had some emotion bubble up when I was especially talking about like ending my marriage and quitting my corporate job and all of those changes and things. And yeah, it's a real gift, I think. So absolutely, yes, we read them both. So
that's awesome. So what's going on in your world at the moment, over there in Australia?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, we always have trainings coming up. So we run our trainings worldwide. So we're completely online. We run all our courses. We actually have students often we have someone who joined us from Denmark. We have people in the UK, from all over, and we have people join us in the middle of the night because they love the Aussie courses. People all over the place. So we've got our NLP happening in June, and in September we have our hypnotherapy. Our hypnotherapy training is a little different. We don't teach it with any scripts, so there's no pieces of paper that you read. When Paul first studied to do hypnotherapy, he was really disillusioned by the fact that you're just sort of sitting there reading pieces of paper and you're not connected with your client. And so if you think about, like, NLP was based off modeling the most successful therapists of our time, our hypnotherapy course is basically based off modeling the most successful hypnotherapists and what they did to get results. But also the way Paul teaches it is completely unconsciously installed, so that you basically don't look at the course manual for the entire week. And at the end of the training, you go through the manual and tell him if there's anything you don't know how to do unconsciously. And everyone is always amazed because they literally look through this whole course manual and they're like, I know how to do that regression. I know how to do a symbolic journey. I know how to do, this emotional change process. Yep, I know how to do that. It's actually all just unconscious. And so I think what we find, a lot of our students who study the NLP, they then also study the hypno. They sort of work together like a yin yang, where NLP, you've got a lot of scripts and frameworks and tools, and it's fantastic for structured coaching and finding the root. And it's almost like having a laser focus to find, especially with the detailed personal history and masters, like you can really find that map to the client's subconscious. And then hypnotherapy is just like this bomb that just like, you'll shift one thing and it just changes something completely different. So yes, we have our hypnotherapy in the next couple of months as well. And we have a new business mindset program that we're launching in June, which is a 6-month mentorship to support people in business. And it's like all the best of the NLP hypnotherapy tools, but applied in business mindset so that you can be at the top of your game. But there's also a lot of skill set component in that too. So there's a lot of cool things happening. I've got my next writers retreat in August and my book writing course. The next launch is happening in June. So yeah, we are always doing lots of fun things. Yeah, but it's the best kind of work. It's the best kind of busy. And this is, we don't, as I've said, we don't have human children yet. So our business is sort of our baby, and it gets so much love, and it, helps a lot of people. And so it's really beautiful to do this work, and also just to know that there's humans like you across the other side of the globe shining your light and doing your work as well. It's really lovely to see and to know that there's so many people. And I think there's this like understanding that you have, like when you studied NLP, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can talk with you about things at this level, and there's a level of kind of ownership and being at cause, and it just makes life simpler. Yeah,
I have to be very careful when I'm talking to people, because I know why they're doing things, to not NLP them, as you've just said. Because
we don't NLP on people. Yeah,
you're like, all right, okay, interesting. And it's I occasionally I'll be like, well, are you open?
Yes.
Are you open to a frank conversation? And if they say no, I'll go, okay. Yeah. And then they get curious as to what is it that you can see that I can't see.
Yeah. It's a blessing and a curse sometimes. I mean, all my friends know I'm the kind of, I know that my friends have co-created me also to be their friend. I'm not the friend that's just like, oh, that's terrible, poor you. I'm the friend that's like, well, let's look at how you're co-creating this situation. So yeah, it's fun, isn't it? It's really good.
It's that level of awareness of life is created the way you want it to be created, consciously and unconsciously.
Yes.
And it's just being aware of it, whether you do anything about it, that's your choice. But having that awareness, it's a hindrance and a help at the same time, because you question, something happens and you question, well, why have I created this? What is it that's there that's making this happen? But then you're like, well, maybe it's supposed to happen. Maybe this is exactly what needs to happen to work me through whatever it is that's making it happen. And you start questioning everything when you have the awareness. Then you get yourself into a self-coaching loop, and you're like, right, stop.
I just feel like away. In Masters, the sleight of mouth reframing.
Yeah.
My favorite go-to when I'm having a situation like that is I will literally write out the statement of whatever it is that I'm handling, and I will go through and I'll come up with like 16 different sleight of mouth reframes for it. And by the time I've gone through all of them, I'm just like, oh, it's not even a problem. It's so cool. That's my number one tip. If you got those skills, there's it's really fun. One of my other favorite reframes is like asking yourself, well, what's perfect about this that I just haven't realized yet? Because sometimes we can be so attached to outcomes, and we can be kind of, oh, well, I know this stuff, so I'm going to control, what's, I can create everything, so that means things should be going exactly my way. Nah, that's not always the case. And you're exactly right. Everything in your life right now is as a result of all your conscious and unconscious decisions and choices. So, it's maybe just what's perfect about this that you haven't realized yet. On a personal note, we've been open to having children, but it hasn't happened for us the last few years, and that's been really fascinating for me on this kind of fertility journey. If I can be really, vulnerable in this space, it's like, gosh, it's been so fascinating to be, a leader in this world and be like, oh, but I can't have children. That means this, and like dealing with all of those. Those bubble up things. Like I thought I'd worked on lots of stuff, and then it's like, okay, Juliet, let's see what you've got under this rock of not being able to have children. And then every now and then when I'm having like a real, the maternal drive and seeing beautiful mothers and all of that, I'll be like, okay, well, what's actually perfect about this? I just haven't realized yet. And it's like, I get to serve, I get to do so many different things. Obviously there's lots of benefits. Motherhood would be so challenging, and I'm sure you can educate me on all of that, right? I've got sisters that have children, and it's like, we don't want to take away, our goals and dreams. Yes, they're important, but we never want them to rob the beauty and the gratitude for what's in the present. And I think I've learned so much through this that I wouldn't have learned if I'd just fallen pregnant naturally really easily or something. Like, it's just been such a powerful, potent journey of also like self-discovery and curiosity and self-love that I wouldn't change it, even though it's been freaking hard at times. And but you know, that's the human journey, is like things don't always go our way, and how do we handle that? And that's really caused me to have to draw upon these tools more than if things were just all going great and all going my way. Yeah, I teach NLP, but like, okay, Juliet, how well do you walk your walk and talk your talk when life is challenging? And I think that's the gift we can give too, is like, none of us are perfect, none of us have got it all figured out, but definitely working with a coach, definitely having someone in your corner that believes in you, definitely exploring these things and being open to this stuff, it's going to help. It's definitely going to help.
Yeah. I mean, I relate on the fertility journey. It was a long time to get my first son, through operations and scans and tests, everything. 2 years. So I get the fertility journey. I mean, at that time, I didn't have the toolkit I've got now.
Right. Yeah.
And that journey itself was something that I had to heal from. And still to today, I mean, the birth itself has left me with PTSD. And I'm still healing from that now. So it's like the stuff happens in your life, and it's how you choose to deal with it that matters. Because stuff is going to happen. Stuff happens all the time. I mean, one of my podcasts from last year was I've got my mum on the podcast, so she was in this room with me talking about her journey with breast cancer. And she shared how because my mum is my inspiration. I'm not going to lie. I said it on the podcast. She's so practically minded, because my dad's a homeopath. He does Reiki, he does reflexology. So I've grown up around all these complementary therapies. One of her best friends was an NLP trained coach. And they used to have very in-depth intellectual conversations, and everything that she's been through in her life led her to a point that she was able to deal with breast cancer practically.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, okay, I've got it. This is what's happening next. This is what's happening next. Okay, I'm having a mastectomy. Awesome. It means the cancer's gone. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And there's no, I mean, she said, even now, she's like, I'm still surprised I've never cried. And I'm like, that just shows how internally strong that you actually are, that it's not happening to you, it's just happening.
Yeah.
And that it's literally such an inspiration to me. Now, I think that has generally helped me a lot to be able to kind of relate to everything to do with NLP, because I've been brought up with that sort of mindset.
Yeah, that's so inspiring. And, you know, her being in that state as well would have been so much more conducive to healing, because without fear, her body was able to go into a healing response. So, yeah, that's beautiful. Oh, it's very special. Well, we got very deep towards the end, didn't we? Thank you. Yeah, it's so lovely to have this conversation. I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
I mean, this podcast, I created it for people to be real on. Because
I can feel that it happened.
we go out, we run these businesses, and it doesn't mean we need to become the business, because behind every business facade is the business owner, who is a human being that has human things happening to them. Just because you are teaching NLP and you've been doing it for 10 years doesn't mean you're immune to life.
Yeah. Well, it's not living, is it?
No, it's unrealistic to think that. I mean, I've only been NLP for about 2 years now, so in my mind, you're way ahead of me, especially now that you're teaching it, because you get that deeper level when you're teaching.
And try teaching with your partner as well. I always joke that's like an extra level.
Well, you kind of you pick up on each other, don't you? Because they're in the know.
But we have to mind, because we both like being the alpha dog, and so we have to also like dance together well as well. Actually, he's trying to kick me off because he's got an interview at 7 o'clock. He's got an interview shortly, so it's happening already. We're like swapping seats around. But no, it's it's really cool. And you're right, like we're humans first and businesses second, and that was the whole intent for me wanting to actually leave corporate, because I just felt like it was, you are a robot and you're expected to clock in and clock out on these hours and not have emotions and not have personal things. And it's like, we're humans first. And it's like the business world still it's getting better, but it's almost like there's token well-being workshops and token meditation rooms, but it's still that mindset of like, no, you're here to be a robot and do these things and not have a heart. And I think the more we can have these humans leading businesses and saying, you know, it's okay. I mean, we did a presentation last February in Bali for 70 business owners, and one of the things we said was, of entrepreneurs, people feel like most entrepreneurs feel like they have to wear a mask. They have to wear this like everything's fine, everything's perfect. And so we just said at the start of the workshop today, drop your masks, just be here, explore what's here. And it was like the whole room just did this collective like, all right, we don't have to pretend, we can just be human and explore this stuff. And I think it's a real gift. So
I mean, what I feel is one of my superpowers is I don't have a mask. One of my closest friends, Lucy, she does mompreneur retreats, and she likes me to go because she knows I will show up as me. So when we start talking about issues, what's going on, if we need help with anything, and I'll be the first to speak, because I will just openly say blah 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 is going on, because it's not that I don't care, it's just like, well, why be fake when you don't actually get any further in life if you're not being true to who you are and true to the actual issues that are stopping you from achieving what you want to achieve.
That's you make it seem so simple, but for so many people,
it's not simple.
That's a whole life journey right there. So that's a superpower, 100%. Yeah.
That it's taken me, I would say. I started on a mindful journey about 10 years ago. So it's probably actually more than that now. It's probably about 12 years. But 12 years ago, I decided to stop living my life for other people.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say it worked like that 10 years ago. It's been a journey. And I still work on it today. But I was like, well, why live your life for somebody else? It's your life, not theirs. Yeah. It's not your responsibility to make them happy.
Exactly. Like, you're the only one that has to wake up every day and live your life. So you got to make the decisions that make sense for you.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Well, I'm going to let you go because I don't want you to get in trouble with your partner.
You'll just literally see me get forklifted out of here.
Come on. It's my turn.
Thank you so much. And honestly, you know, if you're ever in Australia, let me know. And I can't wait to read your book or ebook, whichever comes first, whenever they happen. And just keep doing what you're doing. And I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you. And I love the space that you've created. And it's beautiful, the work you're doing in the world. And of course, if anyone wants to get those details about the 5 keys to start your best-selling book, and if anyone wants to find out anything else, just reach out. Anyone as well that reaches out, let me know that you found out through Leah, and we'll give you a little course credit or something. So we'll look after anyone that's come through this podcast.
Awesome. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful...
Are you ready to become a wealth warrior in 2024? If so, come and follow me on Instagram at I am Leah Crowfoot, where you can find out more about how you can become a wealth warrior through your own money mindset transformation.